Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to another Drak Reviews check-in this time of Final Fantasy 15. Now, this is the one that's the most recent that I've only barely been able to get a hold of for about a month. You know, this is being recorded in January, but I've only had it for about a month. And so at that point, I've already done a Drak Tries on it, so you guys can see the full hour there. But this is just going to be my little check-in review of my thoughts so far on Final Fantasy 15 and whether or not I will continue. Right now, so once again, if people don't understand check-in reviews, I'm not going over like any specific element. This is just me explaining where I'm at with the game right now, and then at that point, I will come back later and give a final score, whether I liked it or disliked it. So right now where I'm at, story-wise, isn't that far. I think I just barely started up questing. I've been doing a lot of side questing in the area that you kind of start out in, and see, that's what I mean. I haven't been able to play a whole lot because of all the other games that I've been working on to be able to get reviews out to you guys. But I also kind of held off for a little bit because the whole announcement came out where we didn't have all of the cutscenes, and so at that point I didn't want to necessarily miss anything. But Square Enix has since answered that problem for me because they've added, in the most recent patch, they added a new Game Plus mode. So at that point, I probably will be playing this through multiple times anyway, not only to play it through for my own satisfaction, but being able to dry run it for Final Fantasy games on the channel, things like that. So I got back into it, and right now so there was like a good solid, like during the holidays where I wasn't playing. And I wanted to, but it was like, well, I don't want to miss anything. Because people will know I'm very obsessive compulsive when it comes to that. So where I'm at in the story is I've been doing a lot of side questing in the first area where like Sid and Cindy are, but also getting a little bit of story done here and there. So I basically caught up to a point where the events of Kingsglaive have happened, and Noctis has found out that his father's dead, and that he's basically king now of Insomnia, and he's not taking it very well, but he's trudging on because they make it very clear that he can't return home. If he does, then it's just going to be bad news for him and bad news for the country. And so at that point, he ventures off to go live a life of, well, not seclusion, but like away from the Empire, making sure that they can't find him. And the last quest that I actually did was I came across one of the other military members' core, and he helped me to get the first two, what was the term that they use? It's like legendary weapons that enable magic for the Kings of Insomnia, and they emphasize that like not everybody has ever found every single one. Your father didn't, and emphasis that his father hadn't, I guess. So I've already done those two dungeons, but also a lot of side questing. My thoughts so far on Final Fantasy 15 are it's good. I don't necessarily have a whole lot of problems with it. Granted, I do have some issues. I've seen that the AI with the other three that follow Noctis is a little hit and miss here and there. A lot of the hunting that I've been doing, which is a lot of my side questing, I've seen them do some really stupid stuff, even when I've ordered them to do otherwise. Like, I've actually tried to aim Prompto at a specific target, and then he goes somewhere else. That could be his own targeting, but it's annoying. The other thing that I find annoying, and I probably shouldn't because it's some of the hilarity factor here, is Prompto's photography, because we get some of the weirdest pictures out of it. I mean, you guys already saw it in the Drak Tries. I got one which was basically all of Cindy's cleavage, and maybe a little bit of her chin, and that was about it. And I was like, oh, wow, Prompto, you're totally trying to tell me that you're totally into girls. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you worship Noctis a little too much for that, my friend. Or another one was, I tried to order Gladiolus to do his Tempest. I tried to literally set everything up so that he could just go right through it with a hunt. And he went in the completely, almost opposite direction. He didn't go completely 180, but he was like 45-degree angle. You know, I was straight in front of him, and he went left. I was like, what the crap, Glad? I haven't really had any issues with Ignis AI-wise, but I think he's more of a buffer healer kind of character. That's my guess. I haven't seen a whole lot of what Ignis brings to the party. So I have some issues with it. The story is not one of them yet. I will say that this story is probably a more slow to build type of story than I'm used to with a Final Fantasy game. Maybe 12 was probably about as slow as this, but I'm not necessarily hating that. I do like the fact that it's, this prince is supposed to be living in obscurity so that he can't be found. And then I do like occasionally that when you're out on hunts, then they will find you, and you actually have to fight off like a squad trying to apprehend you. That's a cool concept, like living in fear of the Empire finding Noctis and capturing him. I do like that concept, and the story so far hasn't been disappointing by any stretch. It's more left questions for me than anything else. But I'm intrigued enough, especially by like the legendary weapons that they tried to do, like 13 weapons. Sounds a lot like Final Fantasy V to me. That I'm interested in what they're gonna do with that one, or that particular line of story, line of questing, whatever you want to call it. Visually, this game looks really, really good, although one problem that I have in the gameplay is you spend a lot of time in that tourist mode they call the car, and it's kind of annoying, but thankfully I've gotten to a point where, like, because you don't get to drive manually. I don't know why they won't let me do it. Unless it's like nighttime and Ignis doesn't want you to do it. Because I've been able to drive manually under that circumstance, but I haven't tried again. But now they've gotten to a point where, like, if you auto drive to a quest location or to a parking spot, it ports you there. You get a loading screen and then you're there. Unless it's story related, then I actually got a full drive. And I'm not a fan, because if I could actually look around a little bit more, then maybe I'd be okay with it. But I also don't like the fact that this is more hands-off than anything. I would really like to be able to drive and maybe go my own way. Maybe because there was actually one point where I know I had a parking spot closer to a location than what Ignis found, and I wanted to be able to go there instead. But since I'm still learning the names, I couldn't get him to go to that specific area. Since I'm still learning that stuff. But aside from that, I mean, the combat matching more to being an action game, I don't necessarily hate that. I think it's way better, in my opinion, than what 12 tried to do with its matching 11's MMO mechanics. So I'm okay with that. I also like the fact that the whole teleporting mechanic at least can help me get to places quicker. But overall, I mean, right now it's good. It's probably bordering on the very good scale. But it's definitely one of those games where I want to get further in to be able to see if the story is worth it, if all of this waiting for extra cutscenes is worth it, and also obviously if this is worthy of worth a worthwhile entry into the Roman numeral saga that is Final Fantasy. So with that, I am going to be continuing on, and obviously my next video will be either a negative one or a positive one. I'm probably not going to do another check-in on it. I'm trying to think if there's any other major thing I want to point out. Not really. I mean, I'm to a point where I'm curious, I'm inquisitive, but the story hasn't really unfolded to me yet, and so I'm more interested in what lies in store. So thus far, I'm liking it. And that's going to go ahead and do it for my check-in review of Final Fantasy 15. I know I haven't given a whole lot of information, guys, but frankly, it's too soon to tell. I haven't been able to play it that much, given all of the other things that I'm trying to play. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for continuing to subscribe, comment, contribute to my content in all the ways that you do. And of course, I will see you guys next time for the last review of 2016.